Hello again, and today n=18 I've decided to talk a little bit about some kind of advanced properties in Android, and I may go on to do iOS and to do Windows Phone later, but I'm going to start with Android. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do our normal type of project. So hopefully I will go to Windows and I need to be in N+1, find the right location. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a portable class library, and this is going to be custom controls, I'll call it. There's always a choice between controls and views and widgets and all sorts of other words, but controls is kind of what I think in, so I'm going to call it custom controls. And what I'll do is my normal kind of setup, and I'll get rid of class 1 because nobody needs class 1. And then pull in MvvmCross. So what I'd like to do in this core package when it's set up is I'd just like to change my first ViewModel so that it has a single property, and that property I'd like to be an enum. So what I'm going to do is create an enum, and I'm going to call this enum shape. And the shape I will have as 3 choices: a circle, a square, and a triangle. Oops. It's going to be very simple, and then I will just have a very straightforward property inside my ViewModel, which is just going to be an instance of that shape. So my normal snippet, PMVX, shape, underscore shape, and shape. So you can see it's very straightforward. I'll call it, I'll leave it as shape, that'll be fine. So it's a very straightforward set of property and straightforward view model, and that should just build. Let's check. Build. Okay, so we've got that working. Now let's also add a Droid UI. So we'll go to Android. We'll choose 2.3 again, just our standard setup. And this is called custom controls, and this is .droid. Off it goes and builds. And obviously what we need to do to this, I'll ignore those 2 prompts. What we need to do this is add a reference to the core project, so, and then we need to add the NuGet package for MvvmCross. So there we go. Right, so with just a very small change, let's just check what our default UI looks like. So we'll go to first view, and instead of hello, we'll put in shape. And let me just get rid of the edit text because that's not very useful for this. And then let's also, somewhere here we've got the old activity, let's get rid of that, and get rid of the main.xml that's left over from the default template. So this should run for us. Let's see. Debug start new. I'll have to start up an emulator because I'm starting from cold here. Build started. So let me start up an emulator. Just a standard one. So this obviously isn't going to show much at the moment. It'll probably show as its circle as our first thing, because there's a bit of text when it does start. But obviously it's not going to do anything more than that. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to have some custom controls for our circle, square, or our circle, square, or triangle. So we're going to try and build those up. So as soon as this does kick into motion, hopefully this emulator is starting. Come on Android, you know you can do it. Right, so it's finally kicking into motion. So once this has actually started, and hopefully it'll come back and refresh. No, cancel. No, it should be there if I do it again. Debug, start new. Right, so it's not going to be very exciting. So yeah, there you go. It's our first view. It just shows the current value, and obviously it's very unexciting to start with. So what we'd like to do first of all is I'd like to find a way of choosing the current value. And to do that, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a spinner. So again, you could use the designer for this if you want to, but I'm going to just do it by hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the spinner. The spinner is going to have that type of content. And is it a spinner or spinner view? We'll find out very shortly. And what we'll do is we will, actually I will find out the easy way by going to a text file, and if I try to create a spinner, then it knows about spinners. So I've got the name right, that's cool. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to set its sources. So what we need to do is not use a spinner, but an MVX spinner. So let's put MVX in. And what we'd like to do is set what its choices are. And so to do that, what we have to do is provide a list of choices. And so what we do is we go back to the ViewModel, and in the ViewModel we need to provide a list of these possible shapes. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a PMVX, which is going to be a, well, let's just use let's use a list. A list of shape. And this is going to be, let's call it list, that's fair enough. List. So that's the list of shapes, and hopefully that will get pulled in. So this is going to give our list, and we'll just initialize it during construction to be the list of all available shapes. New list of shape, and we'll pass in the list. So this is going to be shape.circle, shape.square, shape.triangle. Obviously you could use reflection to do that if you'd rather. So that's going to give us our list, which will be there. And we need to bind that to the item source, so let's do that for our spinner. So we do local colon mvx bind equals, and so this is going to be our item source. We get the capitalization right, and that's going to be list. And then we'd also like to bind the selected item. So I think the syntax for that is selected item, and that's going to be bound to the shape and will be a two-way binding. So let's just see if that works. And if we go to debug, start new again, and let me just also set the default device so I don't have to do this every time, and the startup project. And now I can just hit F5, I hope, to actually run. So it's going to go off and build. And now we've got a drop down, and we've got a text view. So if we choose something from the drop down like square, then hopefully you see the binding works exactly as expected. Now if you wanted to customize this spec, then you can also customize the template to be used. So there'll be a local MVX item template you could customize, which you do using our normal layout type thing. Or there's also an MVX drop down item template which would be used to display the list item when it's actually in drop down form. So I'm not going to do either of those right now. Instead I'm going to concentrate on doing something slightly more exciting with our text view. So at the moment we're binding to shape, and we could put a value converter in, for example, to change color, or we could do something else like that. But the way I'm going to actually try and customize text view at the moment is I'm going to just demonstrate that we could inherit from text view and do something kind of more exciting with text view. It's not really the most exciting demo, but we could do something more exciting. So what I'm going to do is, and it's mainly for demo, there's not a practical use for what I'm about to do here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder, and this is what I tend to do. I could create a folder called controls. Other people may do this differently. And in this folder what I do is I create a new class, and this is going to be custom text view. Actually, let's call it shape text view. Yeah. And this shape text view, what we'd like to make it public, obviously. And I'd like to inherit from a text view. And you'll see straight away that ReSharper, when you do this, complains about the fact that you've inherited and you haven't implemented constructors. So you say generate the constructors for me, and it goes away and it generates these constructors. I'm just going to let it generate all of them. I don't mind which ones it uses. And then what I do is I want to provide a new property on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a property called the shape. Yeah. And it's just going to be a normal property, but it's going to be of type shape from our ViewModel project. So that's that one. And what we're going to do is we're going to just create it initially with get and set, and then we'll use resharper to provide a backing field, hopefully. And then after we've provided this backing field, what I'm going to do is I would like, whenever the value actually gets set on the shape, what I'd quite like to do is I'd like to set the text down below to something special. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call adjust text as a method. And obviously we could do all sorts of things here if we wanted to. But here what I'll do is I will, oops, I missed a semicolon. Here what I'll do is I will provide the underlying text to be the shape.text, to string. But I'll also do something exciting with the color, say, for example. So switch the shape and generate switch labels. Right, so what I'm going to do is I will set the color. So let me do this. So if the shape is a circle, then I will set current text color equal to, and this is going to be, what is current text color is a type of int. No, is it? Okay, so I have to call set current text color. Set text color, that's what I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the text color, if it's a circle, to be color dot one, it's an Android color, color.aqua. If it's a square, I'm going to set it to be red, and if it's a triangle, I will set it to be well, we've not got a magenta. So you can see, you know, you could do anything here. You could do all sorts of calculations. You don't have to, you know, just use a shape. You could use any property type you want. It could be a struct or something, or a more complicated class. But what we've got here is we've got this set up so that you can do something else with our text view rather than just, you know, change the text. So now how do we use this shape text view? Well, what we do is we go back to our resources, and you can see we've got our text view. Let's just copy that, and underneath it we'll put a shape text view. And obviously what we're going to bind is not the text this time. We're going to bind the shape property. So that the shape here is that property name that we've got here. Yeah. And we're binding that to the shape on our view model. And then what we'd like to do is we need to actually just do one more thing to get this into scope. Because at the moment, where does Android look for these resources? Well, it only looks really within Android to find out what a shape text view might be. So what we normally have to do is you actually have to pull in the whole namespace. So if it looks like this, custom controls.droid.controls, and what you have to pull in is you'd have to pull in that, and sometimes you have to make this all lowercase as well. So I think that should actually work. Let me just see. If I change this to custom controls.droid.controls and then leave that shape text view as full, then I think when we run this up this time, and again I set up all my shortcuts so I can hit F5, then I think we should see our shape text view taking place. Let's just see what happens. So now you can see we've got a shape text view, a text view there, a shape text view, and if we change one of these, then you'll see that, you know, we get the colors that we chose as well for things. So that's a custom control. It's a subclass text view, and you know, it's very straightforward to do that. It's quite quick. It's a bit ugly here though to use custom controls.droids.controls. So one thing we provided in MvvmCross is a way to provide abbreviations. So if you go to your setup class and you choose to override something like namespace abbreviations. Let me find it. there it is, the view namespace abbreviations. And what this is a dictionary of lookup from abbreviation to full namespace. So we'll get whatever the base class gives us, and the base class basically gives us this MVX abbreviation, and we'll provide our own. So we're going to have a custom controls namespace. So let's call that CC, and that's going to point to all of this. So let's use it, and we'll pull it back to actually to the full capitalization as well, because that's much nicer to work with when you're a C# dev. So there's custom controls.droids.controls, and then we just return that. So you can provide as many abbreviations as you want to here. So if you start building up assemblies projects with lots of controls in them, you can pull them in very easily and then use these abbreviations. So now CC can be used in here, and hopefully if we run this up we should see exactly the same UI because it will know where to look for CC. Let's just see, copying applications, synchronizing assemblies, kicking into motion, and our normal UI. So it's just a bit smaller in terms of doing these abbreviations. So that's a subclass control. What if we wanted to draw our own control from start? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another class here. And this class is going to be a custom draw shape. A custom draw shape view. And again, what we'll do is we'll make it public. Let me just get rid of some of the screen real estate so you can all see this. So we're going to create a public class, which is a custom draw shape view. And this time we're going to inherit from the base view class. And again, resharp is going to ask us what type of constructors we want, and we'll just say give us all the constructors. And then what we're also going to do is we're going to this time create again a property called the shape, and it's going to be a type shape. Oops, no, we don't want shape text view, we want a shape, and that's again from our ViewModel. And we're going to have the shape, and again we'll just put auto properties in and then let resharper give us a nicer format. So we'll do that, property with backing fields. And then what we'd like to do is whenever we get the shape set, what we want to do is we want to invalidate our user interface. So if you're used to Windows drawing, it's exactly the same type of thing, all the way back to the kind of wparam and lparam and all that sort of wmpaint stuff in Windows 3. It's exactly the same thing. You're basically invalidating the drawing area, asking for a draw to occur. And so then what we actually just need to do is we need to do the draw. So let's do it. So we override a method called draw. I've got this right. The draw gets passed in a canvas. And what we're going to do in that method is we're going to draw our own thing. So there's plenty of other documentation about this. You don't have to just go with what I'm doing here. What you can do quite quickly and quite straightforwardly is put up some drawings. So let's try and do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw based on which shape we have. So first of all, let's take a rect, and let's just do a fixed size rect now. Obviously you could control the rect depending on the size of the control or something like that. But for now, let's just take a new rect, and so this is going to be a rectangle F. No, it isn't. It's going to be a rectangle. Sorry about that. And the rectangle, we just want to really have it's going to start top left, and then let's give it a width and a height of 300 each. So that's our rect. And then what we'd like to do is we'd like to switch based on the type of the shape. So we'll switch on the shape. And again, we'll let resharper generate the switch labels for us. And so then what we'd like to do is on the canvas, if it's circle, we'd like to draw. And so this is going to be draw circle. And you just pass in, oh, I don't really like that format. I'm going to draw ellipse because I think I can pass in a draw oval. And this actually allows me to pass in a rect F. So I might have done the wrong type of rect. We'll find that out in a moment. So let's see if we can pass in a rect. Okay, so it wants a rect F. Let's give it a rect F. And that's one of those. And that as constructor takes... Okay, same argument, so it's just straightforward to use. But then back in this draw oval, it's saying, please also provide me a paint. So what we do is we provide a new paint, And this paint we can pass in some properties to. So let's just see what there is. Is there a fill? No, there's a color. So the color for this paint, I'm going to use color dot. So let me just use the colors that came in from our shape text view so that we match. So for a circle we had aqua. It's complaining about some of the namespaces I pulled in. So that's going to be Android graphics color. And then for the square we'd like to obviously do a similar thing, but we don't want to draw an oval, so we'll draw, it's going to be a rect I presume. Draw rect. And that one's going to be, again, to match, we're going to make that a red. And then for the triangle we're going to have to do a little bit more. So for the triangle, let's just see if we can do this. So for the triangle what we'd like to do is we would like to create some form of polygon. So let's see if we can do this. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to have a, we'd like to do some move tos and some line tos, and then actually let it fill in the areas that we want to use. Yeah, so it should be straightforward to do that, I think. So what we need to do is, sorry, I had to go and cheat a little bit there and look that up, but what we have to do is we create a path. So you create path equals new path. And then what you do is you move to the first place without drawing a line. So we're going to move to, and so this is going to be the top of our triangle. So this is going to be rect dot center x, and then obviously the height is going to be 0. And then what we'd like to do is we'd like to move, we'd like to do a line to the bottom left. So that's 0, comma, rect dot height. Oops, not rect dot handle, rect dot height. IntelliSense doesn't want me to choose height. And then what we'd like to do is we'd like to have a line to the bottom right, which is rect dot width and rect dot height. And then what we'd like to do is we'd like to close the path, so that should be a path dot close, which will come back to the starting point. Once we've done that, we can then do, and let me just check this, canvas dot, and basically what we need to do is we need to create a paint for it. So let me just, so there is a path, draw path, but that's not going to do the fill for us. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to have a bit more information on our paint. So let's do that. So we're going to create a paint, new paint, and again we're going to set the color on this. So let's just do that. And the color from our previous text view was a magenta. That's going to be a color for our triangle. So this is going to be color equals color.magenta. But then we'd also like on the paint to set the fill property. See, so that's just so what we need to do for this, I think, is something like set style on our paint. Obviously you can use all sorts of manuals and things to work this out, but what you should be able to do, set style, and it's something like a fill style. Why is it not giving me a fill style? Hang on. So it's something like, there it is, paint.style.fill. So you should be able here, or you could choose fill and stroke if you wanted to, but we're just going to do a fill. And then what you should be able to do here is just do the paint and pass it in. So obviously, that's a little bit more technical and something you would probably want to look up and do properly. But you can see what we do is we create our rect, we switch on the shape, we do a draw here for a circle, we do a draw here for a square, and for the triangle it's a bit more complicated. We draw a path and we use a fill style of paint. And I hope this works. So again, what we want to do is we want to use this custom draw shape view in our resources. So let's go back to first view. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in, and again I can use my same abbreviations, so that's nice. And I think I said I was going to make it 300 by 300, so let's use those properties. So our width we can fill the parent, and our height what we'd like to do is 300. And now hopefully, and I do say hopefully we'll bind, because it may need a following wind to make that code work. What I can bind is the shape again to the shape on the view model. And now I hope, if I hit F5, this will work. So off it goes. Synchronize, deploy, and do I get a nice drawing? So there's a circle. It worked, which is quite amazing. If I change to a square, I get a square, and if I change to a triangle, I get a triangle. So you can see, you know, it was a bit fiddlier to do a custom draw, but it only took 10-15 minutes, or maybe 5-10 minutes, and I got that up and running. Apologies, I don't know this syntax off by heart. Custom drawing isn't something I tend to do very often at the moment. It's just a, you know, the business type apps I'm doing just don't use custom drawing that much at the moment. So hopefully, apologies for problems, but hopefully what you've seen here is you've seen that in our first view model we just added a shape and we added a list of shapes, and then within our UI we managed to set up, you know, a different way, a standard way, just using a standard control, a customized subclass control using the shape text view, and a custom draw control using our own draw. And that's it. That's all we had to do. And that's just going to end this little N+1 on Android only and on kind of custom controls. I hope that's useful. I'll try and do the same thing in Windows and in iOS shortly.